Congratulations on starting your professional diploma in wine appreciation, and welcome to Lesson 3, where we will discuss all you need to know about pouring and serving wine in a formal setting. My name is Julia Blaine, and I will be your educator in this course. Today we are going to wander through the wonderful world of wine. In this lesson, we will discuss topics such as the science behind a wine glass and how it serves wine, the function of a decanter and the purpose of decanting, and all you need to know when it comes to pouring and serving wine. Let's start off the lesson with the simple wine glass. Before the first droplet of wine reaches our wine glass, we now understand that grapes undergo quite the journey to get there. Grapes are grown and subjected to very different manipulations and procedures before being put in the bottle. One could say that wine is kind of a message in a bottle, a message from nature, translated through alchemy and captured in a bottle. In this metaphor, the wine glass is the instrument that conveys this message, a platform or a stage for wine to tell its sensory story. This is why serving and pouring wine is sometimes referred to as an art, and so much care is taken in setting the stage. According to her Riedel, the same wine has the ability to display different characteristics when served in a variety of glasses. This discovery was made purely by accident. The story goes that while at a restaurant, the sommelier accidentally poured wine into his water glass. Curiosity drove him to taste the wine from his water glass, and he noticed that in this glass, certain flavors were emphasized while others were downplayed. This led him to wonder if there was any science behind the shape of a glass and the sensory experience it can deliver. Today, it is recognized that there is a complex role that the size and the shape of a wine glass plays in conveying the message of fine wine. Ernest Hemingway said that wine is one of the most civilized things in the world and one of the most natural things of the world that has been brought to the greatest perfection, and it offers a greater range of enjoyment and appreciation than possibly any other purely sensory thing. So why does the glass matter? In 2015, the Japanese medical group used a special camera to record images of ethanol vapors in different glasses. In their study, the research group showed how different glass shapes affected the density and position of vapors at the opening of different glasses. The movement of these vapors matter because they carry aromatic compounds to your nose, and it's these very compounds that produce most of the flavors in wine. A basic wine glass consists of three main parts: the base, the stem, and the bowl. The stem and the base are designed for practicality, whereas the bowl is the variable that is specifically designed and altered to best convey a sensory message to the human senses. Variables that may change in the bowl design are the shape, the size, and the rim diameter. A huge part in enjoying wine is about the aromas. Besides the pleasurable sensation of smelling something delicious, like the smell of coffee in the morning, smell plays a role in our ability to taste. If you've ever had a bad cold, you might know the feeling of losing your sense of taste when your nose is blocked. On top of this, perhaps more than any sense, olfaction is highly capable of triggering memory and emotion. A wine glass is an aroma vessel in two main ways. Firstly, aroma capture, and secondly, aroma release. The wine glass allows for aromas in wine to be captured in an area called the airspace. Depending on the style of the wine, you might want a glass with a larger or smaller area to collect aromas. For example, a highly aromatic wine might benefit most from being in a glass with a large bowl in order to properly showcase their aromas. Aromas in a wine glass are released as the alcohol volatilizes from the surface of the wine. Therefore, a wine glass with a big bowl will allow for an increased surface area that wine is exposed to oxygen, which will optimize the release of aromas. This is where swirling also comes in handy, because as you swirl the glass, you are allowing more oxygen to interact with the wine. The surface area of wine exposed to oxygen is determined by the width of a bowl. Think of a champagne flute compared to a red wine glass. Now, whether or not you should have a stem on your glass is all personal preference, but when it comes to serving and pouring wine in a more formal setting, I'd opt for the stemmed glass. The stem ensures that you don't touch the bowl of your glass, which means you don't unintentionally warm up your wine. If you want to analyze the wine's color, the stem is more practical, and swirling is much easier with a wine glass that has a stem. Have you ever wondered why wine tastes terrible when you drink it out of a plastic cup? Plastic is porous and it contains chemicals. It interferes with the aroma and the flavor of the wine, and it can make your wine taste really bad. In general, white wines are served in a smaller bowled glass. A small bowl allows for a more concentrated aroma collection area, and less exposure to oxygen also allows for a delicate aroma to be preserved. As white wines are normally served chilled, a smaller bowl will maintain the temperature of the wine for longer. Aromas in white wines are normally quite delicate when compared to red wines, and a smaller bowl not only preserves and collects these aromas, but it makes them more accessible to you due to the proximity to the nose. You'll notice that fuller-bodied white wines, like an oak Chardonnay for example, will perform better in a larger bowl. These types of white wines benefit from exposure to oxygen in order to release all those lovely aromas. When choosing a glass to serve red wine in, one not only considers the size of the bowl and how it will influence the perception of aromas, but one also considers the influence of tannins. It has been observed that red wines tend to taste smoother from a glass with a wide opening. We will look at 3 general red wine glass shapes and discuss their properties. The large red wine glass, or the Bordeaux glass, is well suited for big, bold, and full-bodied wines that are highly tannic. The big bowl allows for a larger surface area for oxygen to interact with the wine. As big and bold, full-bodied wines are normally higher in alcohol, the large area in the bowl allows for some ethanol to evaporate, liberating the aromas in the wine. Then we get the standard red wine glass, or the universal glass, a good all-rounder and staple glass to have in your home. This is a good glass for medium-bodied reds, but can honestly be used for red, white, and rosé. Lastly, we get the aroma collector, or the burgundy glass. This is a good glass for lighter red wines that have very subtle aromas. The wideness of the glass allows for ample interaction with oxygen and the wine, allowing for the liberation of aromas. The large aroma collection area, or the airspace, also, along with the shape of the bowl, facilitates the concentration and capture of delicate aromas, thereby making them accessible to the senses. When it comes to drinking rosé, it is believed that using a tulip-shaped glass that tapers towards the top is best. For full enjoyment of rosé, this glass shape is optimal, as it focuses the wine's aromas towards the top. Alternatively, the standard or the universal glass works well too. Just as there are many different types of sparkling wines, there are many different glasses to choose from. There is a large variation in shape for the sparkling wine glass, from the champagne flute to the coupe. When deciding which glass to use, consider the fact that the glasses with smaller openings and bowls are less expressive than glasses with large openings and bowls. We will explore the details of this when we discuss sparkling wines in Lesson 8. Dessert wine glasses are normally crafted to be smaller in size with a narrow opening that reduces ethanol evaporation and concentrates aromas. An example of a classic glass that enhances the nuances found in dessert and sweet wines is the official port glass. Throughout the history of wine, decanters have been used and served an important role in the service of wine. Decanters would be filled up with wine from amphoras and taken to a table where it would be easier for a single person to serve and pour wine. After being trapped in a bottle for however long, wine often needs a breath of fresh air so that it can come alive and express itself. Decanting may not look like much, but the increased oxygen exposure to wine greatly improves the taste by softening tannins and letting fruit and floral aromas come out. The average time for decanting can vary between 15 minutes and 3 hours. Over time, you'll develop a feeling of how long is enough time for different wines, but it'll be good practice to find out some information from either the winemaker, sommelier, or wine shop assistant where you purchase the wine on their recommendation for how long that wine should be decanted. So you might wonder, what is a decanter? A decanter is a vessel normally made from glass or crystal that is used to hold the decantation of a liquid. This liquid could be wine or other alcoholic beverages like brandy or whiskey. Decanters can vary in size and shape and in purpose. But basically, a decanter is designed for the purpose of introducing oxygen to wine. The difference between a decanter and a carafe: a decanter is designed for the purpose of introducing air to wine, whereas a carafe is simply just for serving purposes. What do you need to look for when choosing a decanter? As we are starting to notice, Wines that are full-bodied and tannic benefit from being exposed to oxygen. The similar principle applies when it comes to a decanter. Some wines take longer than others to benefit from decanting. A decanter with a large and wide base will be well suited for a wine that is big and bold and tannic, because the large base will create an increased surface area for that wine to interact with oxygen. When choosing a decanter, you can use the following guidelines. Use a decanter with a wide base for full-bodied, tannic red wines. Use a medium-sized decanter for medium-bodied red wines, and for light-bodied red wines, use a small or medium-sized decanter. A good tip here is to chill the decanter to preserve some of the aromas in lighter-bodied wines. Decanting serves a few purposes for wines. As the wine splashes against the glass and flows inside the decanter, it interacts with air. This interaction allows for some of the aromas and volatile compounds to evaporate and others to come to the front. Generally, a wine is found to be more expressive after decanting. At the same time, the mouthfeel may appear softer and less grippy. Simply put, there are just more things to smell when the wine interacts with air. During aeration, there are things that happen that change the wine's chemistry. Evaporation and oxidation. Evaporation is the phase change from the liquid state to the vapor state. Volatile compounds evaporate easily in air. Wine contains many volatile aromas, and not all of them are good. For example, hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten egg. Luckily, these blow off relatively quickly when the wine is exposed to oxygen. We will go into these smelly compounds a little bit later in this course. When decanting, we also allow some of the ethanol to evaporate, thereby allowing some of the more pleasant aromas like esters that we mentioned in lesson 1 to come to the fore. Evaporation happens instantly, so it might be more impactful on the sensory level than oxidation. We briefly mentioned oxidation in the previous lesson. Oxidation is the chemical reaction between oxygen molecules from the air and molecules that are sensitive to oxidation in the wine. Examples of these molecules are phenols, like anthocyanins and tannins. The chemical reaction of oxidation in wine is a much more complex and slower process, and normally wine isn't left in a decanter long enough for it to oxidize completely. One might not notice any effects of oxidation in a wine unless it's been decanted for several hours or even days. Individual wines also react to oxygen differently, and there are many factors in play when it comes to changes due to oxidation. In conclusion, we can say that evaporation is the prime source of change when it comes to decanted wine. Remember, all the summary notes and slides are available in your toolkit and would be really worthwhile to keep as a resource at your fingertips beyond this course. But no sneak peeks, the lesson notes will only become available after you have attended your class or caught up with all your lessons. These will also be really helpful to help you prepare for your assignment. On top of the chemical changes, there's also a practical benefit to decanting wine, which I'll just mention briefly. You can decant a wine to remove any sediment that might be present in the bottle, or to get rid of any cork that might have crumbled into the bottle. You will often see this when you're decanting older wines. Something that makes wine really special is in the theater in serving and enjoying wine. And to quote Jamie Good here, there is another very important aspect of decanting, and that's the psychological one. By treating a wine with respect, you are creating expectations, and I think those expectations are often rewarded. In other words, while the chemistry counts, one shouldn't forget the context of the surrounding act of decanting and tasting, including the sense of ritual, the cuisine, and one's company at the dinner table. The wine does change over time, but we also change as we consume the wine. We are not measuring devices, it is more like a relationship. If you're decanting for the purpose of aeration, then it's time to make a splash. Simply pour the wine into the decanter and allow it to splash around on the glass. You can also swirl the decanter around occasionally to introduce more oxygen to the wine. If you are decanting a wine because it's aged and you want to separate from sediment, the procedure is much more delicate. When you are pouring wine for a guest, the first thing you'd like to do is show them the label so that they are certain this is the bottle that they ordered. And when you are decanting wine, what you like to do is you really want to get a lot of air, because that's the point of decanting. You want to expose the wine to oxygen. So you're going to have your decanter, because this is a Bordeaux style blend, we want a decanter with a wide base so as to allow for maximum surface area to interact with oxygen. Alright, and then we really want to go ahead and make a splash. So Getting there, I encourage you to swirl the wine in the decanter to encourage the process. A pro tip when it comes to choosing a decanter, bear in mind that you have to use it and clean it. So although the design might be gorgeous, you don't want to be stuck with a decanter at the end of the day that you never use because it's such a pain to use and clean. Although a decanter is special and it adds so much to the theatre of wine appreciation and enjoyment, it is not absolutely essential to have one. There are ways to decant wine and to introduce wine to air without having a large glass vessel to do it in. Using the proper wine glass is one way. Alternatively, you can shake the wine bottle and pour it into any jug and then pour it back into the bottle. Another way to introduce air to wine is to use an aerator. There are many different kinds of aerators on the market that can do the job. So how do you know once you've decanted a wine when it's ready? A simple way is taste the wine and notice what you taste before you decant it. A closed wine will be very tannic with little fruit character, which is an indication that it will benefit from decanting. Decant the wine and try it after 15 or 30 minutes. See if you notice less tannins and more fruit. If the wine hasn't changed much, wait another 15 to 30 minutes. And here you can periodically swirl the decanter to encourage the process. If you taste the wine after a while and you notice that it is softer and more fruit aromas are being expressed, it means the wine has had enough time to breathe and it has now opened up. So what do you need to know when it comes to pouring wine? Well, first, let's start off with the anatomy of a wine bottle. In order to understand how to pour properly, we need to know what the parts of the bottle are. So, from the top to the bottom, a modern wine bottle consists of the closure. This could be either a cork or a screw cap, which we touched on in the previous lesson. The capsule, which is the foil part that covers the closure, and from there you get the neck, the shoulders, the body, the label, the heel, and the punt. When pouring wine in a formal setting, there are two main rules to follow. Firstly, the way that you hold the bottle is important. The wine bottle should be gripped on the lower half. It doesn't matter how your hand is situated on the bottle, as long as it's on the lower half. And secondly, you should hold the bottle with one hand. This is part of the proper etiquette when it comes to pouring wine. Pouring with one hand also allows the other hand to be free and equipped with a napkin in case you need to wipe any drippage off the bottle. If you want to take it up a level, make sure that the label of the bottle is facing the person that you are pouring for so that they can see what you are pouring for them. Wine normally tastes better when it's served slightly chilled. In general, a sparkling wine or a light-bodied white wine should be served ice cold, which is about 3 to 8 degrees Celsius. Full-bodied and aromatic wines, as well as rosé, should be served cold, which is around 8 to 13 degrees Celsius. Light and medium-bodied red wines should be served slightly chilled, which is around 13 to 16 degrees Celsius. And full-bodied red wines and dessert wines should be served at room temperature. Room temperature can differ depending on where you are in the world and by what the season is. So by room temperature, I mean around 16 to 20 degrees Celsius. The first thing to consider when pouring wine is how much a standard pour is. A standard pour is the amount that you will be pouring into each person's glass, and it will be determined by how many people are sharing the bottle and which glasses you will be using. You really want to ensure that every person is getting enough wine. We have learned about how wine glasses work, and you might have noticed that some glasses seem to be big enough to fit an entire bottle of wine. I urge you to avoid the temptation to fill these glasses all the way to the top. As the wine glass is designed to hold aromas, and it cannot serve this purpose if it's been overfilled. We have learned that wine needs to be able to interact with air in order to come to its full potential. A general rule of thumb is that a normal 750 milliliter bottle of wine should contain 5 glasses. So that would mean a standard pour is 150 milliliters. Some wine glasses will have a marker or a line on the glass to indicate where to pour up until. If you don't have these glasses, it will be really impractical to manually measure out every single serving. So instead of bringing out the measuring cup, fill the glass to the point where the bowl reaches its widest point. This ensures that the wine has got plenty of room to breathe in the air and that the glasses are filled uniformly. The widest part of the bowl in a properly shaped wine glass normally corresponds to 150 milliliters, so this is essentially your invisible pouring marker or line. Right, now that the wine is at the right temperature, the bottle has been opened and the glasses are ready, the stage is set and it's time for action. Step 1. Tilt the open end of the wine bottle over the wine glass and pour relatively slowly. It doesn't matter if you pour directly into the center of the glass or along the side of the glass. What matters more is pouring the right amount and pouring slowly enough so that the wine doesn't splash all over the glass. You can often use the widest part of the glass as an invisible pouring line. So, now to pour, swirl your decanter. Once again, we want to pour with one hand so that our other hand is available with a napkin. The technique to practice a dripless pour requires a lot of practice. So once you have reached your standard pour level, tilt the bottle upwards swiftly. A pro tip here is to twist the bottle as you do this movement. This is also where your free hand holding the napkin comes in handy. It's always good practice to pour a taste for the host, to taste the wine for any faults before you do the rounds and fill up everybody's glasses. You might wonder when it is appropriate to tilt the wine glass. Normally, it is not proper etiquette to pick up and tilt the glass when you are pouring still wine in a formal setting. But if the setting is casual or you are at home, you can pour however you like. It is, however, common practice to tilt the glass when pouring champagne or sparkling wines in order to preserve the integrity of the bubble. Once you have poured your wine into the glasses and the bottle is not empty, there are a few things you can do. For red wine, you can leave the bottle on a table and wrap a napkin around the neck for presentation purposes. White wines and sparkling wines will go into an ice bucket next to the table so that it doesn't warm up. You can also wrap a napkin around the neck for presentation purposes. If you are in a casual setting and at home and you're not planning on finishing the bottle of wine, it can keep for 3 to 5 days depending on the type of wine. And a good tip here is to put the cork back into the bottle or use a wine stopper. You can keep a bottle of sparkling wine for 1 to 3 days in the refrigerator. I would recommend using a sparkling wine stopper that is specially designed to preserve the bubble in the bottle. Light white wine, sweet white wine, and rosé wines can stay in the refrigerator for up to 7 days. A good tip here is once again, put the cork back on the bottle or the screw top. For full-bodied whites and red wines, this can last for 3 to 5 days in a cool, dark area. Red wines don't have to go into the refrigerator, just keep them in a cool and dark place. When a wine goes off, it essentially just oxidizes and can start to turn into vinegar. This happens when acetic acid bacteria consumes the alcohol in wine and metabolizes it into acetic acid and acetaldehyde, resulting in a taste and smell of vinegar. These are two chemical reactions that can cause wine to go off once opened, so avoid keeping open bottles of wine in warm places, like on top of the fridge, as they won't stay fresh for as long. The lower the temperature you keep the wine at, the slower these chemical reactions will take place. If you don't think the glass matters, I suggest you try out a glass tasting. Serve 1 glass of wine in a water glass and another in a wine glass. I assure you there will be a difference. The scent changes radically, and the experience of drinking a glass of wine will be completely different and new. Tell us about your experience in either words or pictures. #SureWine. Although it is very interesting to understand the science behind the function of a wine glass and how vapors behave in different glasses, it is not necessary to spend a fortune and have every single shape of wine glass in your home. The information in this lesson on wine glasses are just guidelines, and I encourage you to experiment and explore and find a glass that you enjoy. If you are absolutely obsessed with a specific style of wine and you want to use the proper glass to match on a special occasion, then go for it. At the end of the day, wine is made to be enjoyed and enjoyment is subjective. We are just beginning to scrape the surface of wine appreciation, and it is a world of eternal learning. I encourage you to explore and experiment and form your own opinions. Is Shaw Academy living up to its mission? Are you finding the courses flexible and engaging? Are you learning in your own way? And have you mastered any practical skills? Remember, it is your future, your way. The 5 practical skills that we will develop in the wine appreciation course includes tasting, navigating, viticulture and oenology, wine styles and cultivars, and wines of the world. Congratulations on embarking on this journey, and have a look at the skills you have acquired so far. This is just the tip of an iceberg, as in wine, one never stops learning. We will continue to check in with you and your progress for the rest of the course. Keep it up. Cheers, and see you soon.